Namaskar and hello. In the next 10 to 12 minutes,
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to our Fireside chat. Now, India's journey towards digitalization promises to reshape not only its economy, but it also promises to strengthen its position on the global stage, from advancements in AI and semiconductors to strengthening its digital infrastructure and governance. The vision for a digital future-first nation is rapidly taking shape. And who better than Rajeev Chandrasekhar to take us through India's tech-driven future? So appreciate your time. Let me start the chat by talking to you about your recent tweet that went viral. You expressed a strong desire to collaborate with Indian AI and semiconductor builders. What specific areas do you see ripe for partnerships? And what kind of conversations have you had since then?
So thank you for having me this morning, and a pretty interesting crowd. Look, I've been in tech for over 3 decades, and in a lot of ways, it is in Mumbai that I cut my teeth in tech with a mobile company some years ago. And I have a deep sense of understanding on how important it is for those in government and in policy making, or necessarily in public life, to help or assist and encourage young talent at a time when, and this is very important for everybody to understand, at a time when everything that we know in terms of the legacy architectures in semiconductors, electronics, operating systems are being upended, redrawn. And so that tweet was, in a sense, me reaching out to those hundreds and thousands of youngsters who want to play a role, who want to build something in this very exciting and emerging time, exciting and changing time. So that was the intention. I was frankly extremely surprised by the 1,300 plus emails that I got in 24 hours. And I stand true to my promise. I will try and engage with and mentor as many youngsters as I can, and hopefully have many of them become successful.
Absolutely. So lots of partnerships going to be built soon. Rajeev, what do you make of the DeepSeek versus OpenAI saga? You know, we've got, what will an India model look like? Recently, Ashwini Vaishnav said that India will be developing its own AI, generative AI model, powered by India AI Compute Facility.
Look, I think the conversations around AI tend to be either very hyperbolic or very low res. And somewhere in between, there is a real pathway to what is clearly a very, very new era in tech as we all know it. The conversations are today in 3 or 4 parallel threads. One is the conversation that the OpenAI event in December 22 initiated, which is generative AI, these large models, very general purpose models. And the belief that OpenAI put forth, Sam Altman put forth when he came to Delhi, that somehow you needed billions of dollars to be a player in AI.
We've proved him wrong.
Yeah, and the DeepSeek moment really is another milestone that has altered the narrative and said, no, it is not only about compute, it is also about algorithms, it is also about innovating and having high quality data sets. It's also about architecting these models differently. So therefore, we are doing what history of tech has shown us, that we will start with a set of assumptions, and there will be some youngster who will come and upend that assumption, and we will move into a totally new model. And DeepSeek has certainly opened the door for open source AI.
Yes.
It has opened the door to much more frugal and infrastructure constrained AI, which is creating more and more innovation. And I suspect that there will be many more in the wake of DeepSeek that will alter almost irreversibly the narrative that you needed to be an American company with multi-billion dollars to be successful in AI.
Absolutely. You know, Rajeev, in your recent discussions, you've emphasized India's potential to lead in AI governance. So is it time for the age of governance AI, the killer app, as you put it?
Look, I have maintained for many, many years, and this is coming from my experience as being part of Prime Minister Narendra Modi's team, that technology, the biggest at-scale deployment of technology is in government and governance. And the India DPI experience over the last 6 to 7 years has demonstrated how technology and use cases can really make very, very deep impacts in people's lives in governance and democracy. I continue to maintain my view that if you just extrapolate that graph of the India DPI and add on and layer AI onto it, that Gov, and I've called it gov.ai, will be the biggest use case for AI.
Okay.
Just a few days ago, Satya Nadella said, look, AI is a problem searching for a use case.
Yes.
And I would humbly submit, and I'm not the last word on it, I will acknowledge, that governance and use cases in governance, healthcare, agriculture, natural calamity prediction, lot of these use cases that the government is going to deploy AI in will be the at-scale deployment of AI that we are seeking.
Again, picking up from what we're discussing right now at the recent AI summit in France, you highlighted the importance of governance in AI applications. How do you envision India's role in setting global standards as far as, ethical, transparent AI governance is concerned?
Look, this is again one more thread of conversations around AI that is just beginning to pick up, which is what ought to be the guardrails for AI. How do you prevent misuse of AI? How do we prevent AI from causing harm to individuals or enterprises? And again, pre-DeepSeek, the assumption was that there would be a few American companies that would have access to AI.
Yes.
And therefore, since the good guys have AI, there's no problem about the bad guys having AI. That was the assumption. But certainly, some of the bad guys have got access to AI. And it will be the case that many, many people will have their own models and AI capabilities. So I think this conversation about what ought to be the guardrails to prevent harm, and therefore to create a new classification of AI around safety and trust, is a conversation that is just beginning to pick up.
Sure.
And I think the France Action Summit, AI Action Summit, the AI Safety Summit at Bletchley Park, which I attended, are essentially pointing to governments needing to come together and establish some sort of a global understanding of what ought to be the guardrails. It should not be regulation like the Europeans do, but it ought to be something that does not make innovation and guardrails appear to be binaries. These two can coexist, and it is for the countries of the world to discover what those guardrails are.
Surely, and it will be the best of both worlds, like you said. Now, Rajeev, India has been a signatory to international agreements advocating for open and ethical AI. How do you see these commitments influencing both domestic policy and the broader tech ecosystem?
Look, again, my own view on this is that we've talked about open in the context of open source versus closed. I think some countries and some companies have made an attempt to resist AI from going open source. I think it's a doomed to fail effort.
Okay.
AI will be open source. Countries like India, for example, will cold start our efforts using open source AI models, and so many countries will do the same. So the attempts to say, no, we will have these closed black box models, whether they are Gemini or whether they are OpenAI's ChatGPT, I think that has played out and has run its course. There will be more and more open AI. On the issue of ethics, I want to just make the point that ethics is again a very subjective phrase. What you think of ethics and what I think of ethics, what India thinks of ethics, what China thinks of ethics,
can be different.
May be very different. So I would argue that the way we must move forward, and this is what the government of India and Prime Minister Narendra Modi ji has put forth since December 23, is to talk about safety, to talk about trust.
Correct.
That platforms ought to be, AI platforms, AI models ought to be trusted. They have to be safe. And from there follows a number of things, including algorithmic transparency, lack of bias, and then consequences if you are biased or error-prone. So these are issues that will come if you make safety and trust the principal poles around the guardrails that have to be designed for ethical use, responsible use, etc., etc.
Sure. You know, AI has been the buzzword for several years now, and with the government's proactive approach to AI, including the India AI mission, what sectors do you believe will benefit most from AI integration in the near future?
Look, this is an interesting question, and thank you for asking this. I think everybody looks at AI, everybody looks at outcomes of AI very differently.
Yes.
Somebody wants their search to be better, somebody wants their letters to be written better, articles to be written better. But Satya Nadella said this very beautifully 5 days ago, and I think this is really the only benchmark to measure AI, which is how will it improve, if you're a corporate, how does it improve your bottom line? If you're a country, how does it improve your GDP? And in the Indian context, our Prime Minister's vision of AI is that it must expand our digital economy, it must expand our innovation economy. We are today at about 14% of our GDP comes from digital and innovation. His target is that we should hit $1 trillion of innovation by the year 2027, which will become 1/5 of the GDP. So AI should be, in my opinion, as we see it, a kinetic enabler for GDP growth,
Yes.
for opportunities, for investments, jobs, and startups. So I think if you keep that front and center as the outcome that we should be focused on, then everything falls into place.
Well, you've very clearly simplified that. Again, Rajeev, you know, India's diverse and multilingual environment presents challenges and at the same time opportunities for AI development. How can we use this diversity to leverage and create AI solutions that are both inclusive and, of course, are globally competitive but don't leave behind anybody?
No, I think that is the India opportunity. I think the Indian government today and the Indian ecosystem, innovation ecosystem today are repositories of data, and therefore data sets that can be used by Indian startups and other entities to create expert models, models that are using these repositories of very high quality data to train through inference models that are going to be targeted at use cases in healthcare. Imagine what we can do if we today can say we predict the healthcare patterns of the population in the Northeast, the North, the West, and the South very, very differently, and are able to tailor Government of India schemes and policies on healthcare that will anticipate what is going to happen in the next 3 to 5 years. Imagine using our agricultural DPIs and farmers' apps, how much further we can take AI in our ability to predict farming, cropping patterns, what they should be doing in terms of crop selection,
Sure.
and their economic model. So there is a lot that our DPIs and our data sets will do in terms of making government AI or governance AI and these applications, these use cases, transform individual areas of our population or individuals in our population very, very transformative. So I think the diversity is going to be the strength, is going to create expert models in a manner that no other country can.
All right. Let me now talk about the collaboration between the government and the private sector. It has been pivotal in accelerating India's digital infrastructure. How can this partnership be now taken one step forward to strengthen and accelerate AI and semiconductor development?
Look, I have had the privilege and honor of working with our Prime Minister as a minister, and then before that as an MP, before he decided to send me to Trivandrum, and then I lost an election. That's a different story. Look, he is firmly of the view from the minute that I met him, from 2015 when he launched Digital India, that entrepreneurs and entrepreneurship are firmly part of our long-term India economic story. So whether it is semiconductors, whether it is artificial intelligence, whether it is electronics, whether it is D2C, the government today is stepping up and playing the role of an enabler. In AI, for example, the AI compute infrastructure, there'll be money available for funding startups. And there will be money that will be given to academic institutions to create the deep talent that the AI ecosystem requires. And we did exactly the same thing in semiconductors 2 years ago. Everybody said India can never be a semiconductor player, and today the flag is planted firmly in the semiconductor design and manufacturing value chain. So we expect, and this is exactly what the government is doing, to play the role of a very active cheerleader and enabler to allow young Indians to succeed.
All right. Let me now shift focus to skilling. You know, as AI becomes integral to various sectors, how can India prepare its workforce really to adapt to these technological changes and again ensuring that nobody is left behind?
No, look, this is the $100,000 million question. I mean, I think whether it is AI, whether it's semiconductor, whether we are talking about the next compute platforms, and whether you're servers or automotive, there is really deep talent, deep skills, deep capabilities that are required. It is no longer just about coding or programming. And so therefore, this is something that the Prime Minister recognized very well in advance. We did this very successfully in semiconductor, where we have completely created a curriculum change. We are funding centers of excellence. We are funding the infrastructure requirements for many, many colleges and universities. And the same model will be played out in AI.
Okay.
We understand, I mean, we as in, I shouldn't say we, I'm not in government anymore, but the government understands very clearly, the Prime Minister understands the critical nature of deep talent to the success of these sectors, and is investing accordingly in building those capabilities.
All right. You know, my next question, and you've touched upon this earlier, but you know, challenges like cybersecurity and infrastructure still remain. What strategies really should be implemented to address these issues and build really a resilient digital ecosystem?
Look, I mean, I think you're asking me an unrelated question on cybersecurity, but I think you will find that even in cybersecurity, the kind of approach the government is taking, a lot of intelligence and smarts is being built into these platforms that CERT is building, which is not just about reacting to cyber incidents, but also proactively anticipating. Especially since we live in a neighborhood where we have neighbors who are not terribly friendly, and we can anticipate influence operations given the open nature of our internet. There is a lot of work that is being done by the government and our security agencies in marrying AI and cybersecurity applications. And so some of those things will become visible and obvious over time. But I can only say that it is a well-understood challenge, and there are capabilities that have been built.
How do you really see India, you know, its push for digital innovation on one side and the need to protect citizens' privacy and data security? What is the push by the government?
Shruti, I don't think this is a binary. I mean, this is a question that somehow assumes that innovation and citizens' rights are two choices that have to be made. And the digital data protection bill that we legislated, the government of India legislated and got parliament passed, is an absolute shining example of how we don't have to choose.
Okay.
We can build, and we are building, and this collection of youngsters here is evidence of that. We are building one of the fastest growing, most exciting innovation ecosystems in the country. At the same time, we are not compromising an individual's fundamental right to privacy, an individual's fundamental right to data protection, which is what the data protection bill is. So it is not a choice to be made. It is not a binary. Europe thinks it's a binary. India doesn't think it's a binary. We think we can handle both those challenges and continue to grow and expand whilst protecting our citizens.
All right. Looking ahead, where do you see India in the next 5 to 10 years, let's say in terms of its digital-first journey, particularly AI and the semiconductor industries?
Look, I think this crowd will tell you that you'll be rather foolish to predict anything even 18 months down the road. So I certainly don't want to appear to be foolish in front of the crowd. I think, look, I can only say that we are in the most exciting phase of technology in contemporary history. What we saw in the last 10 years, 15 years, the internet, social media, it's nothing compared to what we are going to see in the coming 2, 3, 4 years. So in the near short term, I think Indian entrepreneurs, Indian innovators will have their flags planted squarely in the semiconductor space, in the emerging electronics and compute space, and in the AI space. That is the prediction I'm willing to make.
So what are the biggest trends, the big trends that excite you most?
I think all of this, the fact that every legacy architecture, whether it is semiconductor, electronics, or operating environment, is being rejigged, undone, redrawn. brings us almost to the starting point of a completely new era in the computer age. It's like the old time when Microsoft and Bill Gates came up with CP/RM and DOS. In the old days, this is like we have come back to a starting point where we don't even know what the future operating system is going to look like. Is it going to be an LLM that is going to be an operating environment? We don't know what the semiconductor of the future is going to be look like. Is it going to be many different types of ASICs with 1 or 2 GPUs? We don't even know what the compute platform is looking like. I mean, a laptop and a desktop has become history, and what will the compute platform look like? So we are almost at the start of a totally new era in technology, and I think that is why it is the most exciting time ever to be a technologist or a spectator or an investor, as the case may be. And I was just telling somebody, I wish I was 30 years younger, because certainly I've never been as excited as I am today, excepting I'm an old gray-haired spectator to this whole excitement, while the youngsters get to enjoy most of the
You're giving
fun.
yourself very little credit, Rajeev, here. But let me wrap up by my final question. You know, at the beginning of the interview, we spoke about your tweet and that you've received, what, about 1,300 emails in 24 hours. Yeah. What would be that one piece of advice that you're giving out and to our audience who are looking to start up in the AI space?
Look, my only advice, if you want to call it advice or gyan or whatever it is, if you are in this, get it all in. This is not for the faint-hearted. This is not for somebody who's only talking about low-res, high-level kinds of conversation. If you are somebody who's a builder, somebody who wants to really go out and do something, impactful, this is the time to do it. There has never been a time like this. Take it from me. I've been around the block a few decades. This is the most exciting period in the history of technology. So grab it, build it, let's go.
All right, on that note, we'll have to wrap up our conversation. Many thanks for your insightful conversation. It was an absolute honor speaking with you.
Thank you.
And thank you for being such a fabulous audience. Thank you so much.